First, just a brief statement on the protocols to be followed during this remote meeting. Note this meeting is being broadcast on YouTube and a recording will be made available for public viewing following the meeting. Can members please mute their microphones throughout the meeting when not speaking? This is important since it helps to ensure the quality of the audio for all present. Your microphone should be switched on when invited to speak and switched off when you have finished speaking. Now, please use the raise hand button to indicate that you wish to speak at any point. Can I also ask that officers introduce themselves by confirming their name and role before speaking for the first time on any item? If any members lose connection or have any technical issues during the meeting, please alert the clerk as soon as possible, either using the chat function within the meeting or by email phone. I'll now ask the clerk to carry out a roll call of the elected members participating in today's meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Chris Kane.
Present.
Councillor Scott Farmer.
Present.
Councillor Douglas Dodds.
Present.
Councillor Alistair McPherson.
Here.
Councillor Susan McGill.
I'm here.
And Councillor Ross Oxborough. I don't think he's here at the moment, Chair. So that's 5 members present.
Okay, thank you. There are any apologies, substitutions? Nope. Declarations of interest? There is no urgent business being brought forward.
Chair, sorry, I would just like to declare that I'm a member of the Integration Joint Board at item 14, and I don't think it precludes me from continuing with the meeting, but I just wanted to declare that.
I'm the same, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so there's no urgent business being brought forward, so we'll go to the minutes. And does anyone have any issues or queries about number 1? Page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. Okay, so we're happy enough with the minutes as written. Okay, thank you. We'll now turn to item 5, the rolling action log. And I'm going to mention, I'll go through them by number, just if anyone's got issues to come out, but what I'm going to say is that I note that the action is complete presented for noting and removal is listed on a lot of them in the comment section. So if anybody's unhappy about it being marked as complete and removed, please let me know. But I will just take it once I go through this by number, that if it says remove in the comments, that we're agreeing that it can be, unless you tell me otherwise. So CR 102, CR 111, 140, 160, 198. Councillor McGill.
Just wondered what the completed date is. There is November 21. I just wondered what the updated date is.
Stephen MacDonald.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks for the question, Councillor McGill. So the initial scheduled briefing was cancelled due to a special council committee that was arranged. We have appointed architects who have started a 12-week contract, which is looking at the feasibility, the costings and initial design. Part of the stakeholder engagement will include elected members. So they're a couple of weeks into that contract, so dates should go in the diary fairly soon. I would imagine over the next few weeks to get a briefing and members' engagement on the Albert Hall's plan. So that will be forthcoming shortly.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd add to that, Councillor McGill, that when Councillor Farmer and I met as convener and vice convener with officers, there was a little bit of we were slightly out of step where we thought the process was. So we thought that the process that Steve's just outlined had already begun. So because the update for all members wouldn't really be more than almost a project plan of the next steps, we sort of felt it was probably more beneficial for everybody to begin the next steps and then do the update for all members. So that's just an add-on from me from that. We will leave that one there until the members' briefing has been arranged. Okay, CR 199, CR 211, CR 214. Apologies, I missed this one when I was looking at this. I would have asked, what is the clarification on the request? It says in the notes. I just wondering what the clarification is that we're needing, or if you've not got that to hand, if we can pick up on that over today or tomorrow, we'll give you that clarification. Steve?
Yeah, I think, just a bit of clarification exactly what was required for this specific action. I know we've talked before about a specific kind of comms plan for culture. So if that's what it is, then we can get that done. I think we've learned a lot over the last kind of couple of months doing the City of Culture bid, and there's some really good kind of comms and engagement. So we've got a good base to work from. But maybe seek some clarification on that, just exactly what's required. We can get that completed. Okay, that's my dog barking in the background. Arrives. I'll just ignore that. So CR 224. Okay, CR 227.
Chair, did you miss out to CR 218?
Sorry, Councillor Dodds.
Did you miss out CR 218?
If you don't mind, and showing that it's live, I'm going to ask Councillor Farmer just to take over for just 1 minute while I go and shut the door in the background, so I can hear people. So please bear with me, Councillor Farmer, if you wouldn't mind, just for a minute.
Okay. So what was the question, Councillor Dodds?
Councillor Kane went to CR 224. Did he miss out CR 218, the report on the swimming pool for elected members?
I'm quite happy for you to ask that question.
The question is that the anticipated matter would be for January the 22. Are we going to get any update in relation to the swimming pool? Does anybody know? Thank you.
Is there anybody here? Stuart.
Good morning, members. I'm Stuart Oliver, Senior Manager for Economic Development and Communities. I'll come back to you on that, Councillor, and I'll come back to the committee as well. I've picked that up with assets. That's an assets-led issue in terms of bringing that information forward. But I'll have a word and make sure that we get that note around ASAP, provided an update.
Okay,
it'll be confidential, but I mean, I'd like an update because I raised it and we're still waiting, so that's fine. Great, thanks.
Okay, I appreciate the committee's indulgence. Appreciate much stepping in there. I think that's the first time I've had a dog moment on a committee, so I think everyone who's got a pet will have that at some point. Right, so we are now at CR 224, CR 227, 229, 232.
Chair, I'd like to raise a couple of issues about 232.
Well, to be fair, Councillor McPherson, if you got, I just wanted to ask Wendy if she wanted to add anything to it, just because there's nothing in the comments.
That paper should be coming today to this meeting, and we had agreed previously. Sorry, my apologies, Wendy Forrest, and I'm the Head of Strategic Planning and Health Improvement for the Health and Social Care Partnership, and I also chair the Clackmannanshire and Stirling Alcohol and Drug Partnership. The two actions we have, the report today, which outlines the approach and the outcomes, meeting the outcomes of those affected by drugs and alcohol. And we had agreed previously that the DRD report would come on an annual basis because the numbers are quite small. And I think when we spoke to the convener of this committee, we felt it'd be helpful to talk about the work that was underway and respond to some of the challenges that we have locally. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, I think, Chair, I know it's on the agenda item 14 today, and I was going to raise these issues that are not covered within the rolling log, so that's fine. I'll raise issues on item 14. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are we happy for these to be marked as complete if they're in item 14? Yep. Okay, so CR 232 can be marked as complete. So that comes to 234. Look at the notes this week. So I think I'm reasonably certain, Leslie, I'm keep me correct with this, Leslie Gallagher, that was the note we received yesterday, so we could mark this one for complete as well as committees received it.
Yes, I think so, Convener.
Okay, to CR 235. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Right, that takes us then on to the Community Planning Partnership update, which is item 6. Who's introducing this one?
That'll be myself, Convener, thanks.
Okay, Leslie, go for it.
Thank you. Leslie Gallagher, Service Manager, Regeneration and Inclusive Growth. The focus this reporting cycle for the Community Planning Partnership update is on the work of the Executive Board at its meeting in November. At that meeting, the Board considered and endorsed 2 important areas of work for the Community Planning Partnership. Firstly, the Board heard from a representative from the Community Planning Improvement Board on the role of Community Planning Partnerships in climate change and sustainability. The Improvement Board's briefing paper on this is attached as Appendix A. The Board also heard from Stirling Council on progress towards implementation of the Climate and Nature Emergency Action Plan locally. The Board concluded that the local sustainability partnership should be expanded to include community planning partners, including the third sector, and become more embedded within the community planning structure. Secondly, the Board considered the role of leadership and partnership in tackling violence against women and girls. This was particularly timely given that the 16 Days of Activism campaign started the day following the Board meeting. Leadership actions to continue to tackle gender-based violence every day will be developed by the Board, and alongside the strategic and operational activity of the Gender-Based Violence Partnership will continue to make an impact on this critical area of work. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. I suppose just to say this one, it's an interesting one in that this committee looks at the community planning partnership, but certainly one of the big issues that was discussed is more under the purview of environment and housing for us. So it's interesting for us to talk. We're sort of talking about the Board more so than the issue. On the 16 days of action, can I just pass on my congratulations to all of the officers of Stirling Council for the hard work that they did in promoting this and working with partners to promote this incredibly important issue. I think we certainly raised the bar on how we highlight the issue during the 16 days, and that was heartening to see. And I'm happy to say something I said in the CPP Board, which is congratulations to Police Scotland for their That Guy campaign, which I think if you've not seen it, you should, and it's certainly been one of the more compelling campaign videos that I've seen on any issue like this for a long time. Any other questions on this paper? No, I mean, to be fair, it is a noting paper, or it is a paper where it's just giving us oversight what's happening within the Board. Right, okay, so that is then item 6, and we move on to item 7. Now, I'm conscious. I think I'm going to ask Stuart Oliver to speak to something. I'm doing it in this paper because there's nowhere else to do it. I want to talk about the City of Culture bid just for a minute. It's a sort of quirk of the system of the committees, that in order for officers normally to talk to an issue, there has to be an officer's report, and the timing for getting a report into the cycle means that the report would have had to be written at the start of the process of the City of Culture bid. So this is the closest thing I can get to an item on the agenda to maybe get a comment from Stuart on the broader cultural part of what we've been doing with the City of Culture. I have briefed Stuart. I would ask him that question because yesterday the City of Culture bid went in. So Stuart, I don't know if you just want to comment on the overall process at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yeah, it's been a fantastic piece of work involving so many, and the cultural partnerships really come together superbly to bring together a bid that really represents Stirling very well and seeks to do what we all do and what this committee, what we all hope for, and what this committee in particular, which is to use culture and cultural activity as a driver for social and economic good, increased participation, because we all know how important participation in culture can be for mental and physical health and for helping regeneration. And we started out on the road to kind of outline that ambition for Stirling and to mark our ambition, but the key kind of goal was to bring people together to really properly articulate what Stirling is and what Stirling wants to be in that regard. And I think win or lose now in terms of the submission, we've done that. We've laid the foundations, and there's a there's a roadmap now, if you like, that all the partners have contributed to, got behind, and contributed very positively. So, like I say, win or lose, I think we're in a brilliant position now as a wider Stirling cultural partnership to move on and do some really positive things that will benefit all residents in Stirling. So I commend the working group partners hugely, because the positivity and spirit and creativity that's brought that bid together in such a short time has been fantastic and really quite heartening and inspiring, I think. So brilliant effort from loads of folks, and obviously we hope for the best outcome.
Yeah, please pass on my thanks to everyone for their hard work in pulling together the bid document. And what is it? It was a crazily short period of time. It's been, from beginning then, it's been a couple of months. It's remarkable how much endeavour and work has been put into such a short period of time. You used the word inspiring, Stuart. I think inspiring is how I would describe the process as well. I was never thought for a minute Stirling couldn't get the accolade and wouldn't deserve it, but even I am surprised at just how much we as a cultural partnership have coalesced around this idea, and it's really brought a laser-like focus to where we're going with culture. And as you say, win or lose, I am mightily impressed with the focus that it's brought to culture, and the partnership working has just been it's always been good, but it's even better. So again, just my congratulations to everybody to getting us to the point where we had a bid that gets submitted yesterday, and I can't wait to find out what happens. Councillor Farmer, then Councillor McGill.
Thanks, Kildare. Yeah, I mean, the partnership working has been quite phenomenal, and over such a short period of time, we managed to focus a very clear and inspiring vision for our bid. So we're all hopeful that we can move from there into the shortlist and move forward. And this also builds the foundations for driving forward a really exciting and dynamic cultural strategy as we move forward. So that's really a positive in itself. And it was fantastic to see the engagement of our communities and our businesses who really put their shoulder to the wheel in that Herculean effort to put forward this bid in such a challenging timescale. So thanks to everyone involved.
Apologies, Councillor McGill.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said. I think it's been a fantastic effort on everybody's part. I just two wee questions. One, when is it's probably been already discussed previously, but I've forgotten, when is the kind of final decision date? And could you maybe give some examples of activities the third sector and the partners did to submit to the bid?
Well, I'm going to jump in here, Councillor McGill. Maybe not put Stuart Oliver on the spot there, because that was the same question that the media have been asking us about what's in the bid, and we've been very clear of saying is that we'll all find out what's in the bid at the same time. So there's a lot of good stuff in it, and I think we're in a really good chance. So if Stuart wants to go further, that's fine. But I'm conscious there's no paper here, so this is really just a brief thing. Stuart.
Yeah, thanks. So just in terms of timescales, Councillor McGill, mid-March is when we expect to find out if we've been shortlisted, and then it's early May. I think that from that period, you would then find out who the overall winner is. So hopefully we're still in there come May time, and I think it's a good enough bid to be there and ultimately to win. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. In terms of the involvement, though, it's been great. We've had SVE on the working group, of course, to represent the third sector, and as part of the community engagement to bring together ideas and needs and wants for the bid. Third sector organisations have contributed fully, and community groups have as well. So that's been one of the most pleasing aspects. The range of views and ideas and angles that have to come together into the bid to make it work for everyone.
Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. But yeah, I thought I'd like to obviously put on record the work the officers have done here. I do remember being at the Glasgow City Culture, European City Culture in 1990, great events. I think the elephant in the room for me is that somebody who's a nationalist and a Republican, I would hope by then this will be part of the disentangling from us from the UK after a referendum in 2023. So I hope it goes ahead, but it'll be part of our see you later to the United Kingdom. You know, there's no point in me kidding on about it. You know, this is the UK bid. Fine, I get that. But as I say, it'll be a party of cheerio, hopefully, from the United Kingdom, from my point of view. Thank you.
As expected, Councillor McPherson, I wouldn't expect you to say anything else other than that, but I'm sure we can make the point that there will be a range of views that don't always coalesce with what you've just said. I know you've been saying that all your life. Right, okay, that's the City of Culture, but I appreciate you allowing me just to slot that one in there because it seemed appropriate to do that today. But on to the substance of the actual the performance of strategic priorities progress report. Does anyone have any questions? Nope. Okay. Councillor McGill.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't really sorted there. So I just wondered, it was on the Appendix 1 and the funding available, the European Social Fund available, and the target is 701,636, but we've never really achieved that. And I know obviously we've got COVID in there, but I just wondered, firstly, why that target was so specific. I can't say the word specific, that's it. And why we hadn't reached the target in the last few years.
Okay, before we get the answer, Isabel McKnight has reminded me in the chat function that I've moved past the introduction to this. Well, I do apologise for that. That was me putting in the City of Culture bid. So if we can maybe just backtrack before we answer Councillor McGill's question, do you want to introduce this and say anything overall in the paper?
No, I think it's fine. It was just to remind you that we hadn't introduced. It's fine. It's okay. There's officers here to take those questions. It's the standard update on performance. Okay, thank you, and apologies for pushing past that bit of process. So, and I hopefully haven't just interrupted the train of thought for Councillor McGill's question. Who wants to take that?
I can answer that, convener, if that's okay.
Okay, Leslie.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McGill. Essentially, the figure is calculated. It's a drawdown facility, the ESF monies, based on an application that was made at the start of the programme, so it's several years ago now, and then that's allocated out on a pro rata basis annually. It would be highly unlikely for it to be fully drawn down because there's always glitches, there's always maybe delays in putting a claim in, or there are staff absences. We can only claim for absolute spend. So if there is maternity cover or delays in recruitment, we can't claim for the money for that. So that's been the case. We've actually had 3 different staff delays within the core team, and then several recruitment challenges within the other teams. But rest assured, though, that the claims are always verified, and we never lose resource due to an inappropriate claim. So our compliance processes are very strong, Stirling. I think that's important to stress, that the compliance team are very good at making sure that every eligible claim is verified and these go in. And so we've never had that issue. It's really ineligible costs that we've not been able to claim because of, as I say, mostly recruitment issues. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McPherson.
Chair, this is going to be a common theme for me today in most papers here. I just want to know here, obviously the Omicron come along here and things are getting back to normal. Where are we with regard to all the reporting that was in this today with regard to the resumption of face-to-face services and the various elements of this report? I don't know who's best to pick that one up.
The general question, how are we getting back from everything being remote to everything being provided in person? Do you want, if you're going to raise that for every question, do you want, I'm happy to spend just a couple of minutes if you want to talk more generally about that. Isabel McKnight, do you want to come in?
Yes, good morning, colleagues. Isabel McKnight, Chief Operating Officer, Communities and Performance. It's just to say that we are already working through a paper that we'll present to our Finance and Economy Committee on hybrid working, and where appropriate and safe to do so, we continue to meet people face to face. Clearly, Omicron gave us a bit of a challenge in terms of the number of absences, the number of difficulties that aligned itself to that particular strain. However, as we come out the other end of that and subject to any other restrictions that may be posed, we are working towards that return to face-to-face working. So that's in progress, Councillor.
Councillor,
if do you want to explore? You can explore it in other papers if you wish. But do you have any other questions on it now, or?
Yeah, I think it's probably more to do. I think it's more to do with item 14. I'm more concerned about, to be honest with you, about the alcohol and drug partnership, because there's no substitute for face-to-face support with that one. I'm pretty happy with the answer.
Yeah, I would probably suggest that we'll hold that one back to item 14, and we can raise that then. Okay, any other questions on item 7 on the agenda? No, okay. Thank you. That takes us on to item 8, the food framework. Leslie.
Thanks, Convener. This report updates on the ongoing work to tackle food insecurity and increase food sustainability. 2 main areas are covered in the report: the continued rejuvenation of the Stirling Food Partnership and the distribution of the Good Food for All Fund. The Stirling Food Partnership work is led by Stirlingshire Voluntary Enterprise as a key deliverable within their service level agreement. Appendix 1 shows the detail of the work, and it is ongoing well and on track. Appendix 2, apologies, that's my dog this time, I hope you can still hear me. Appendix 2 shows the range of organisations successful in their applications to the Good Food for All Fund, designed to support local organisations to implement activity aligned to the food framework. The fund was very well received and oversubscribed. However, some other budgets were appropriately identified to increase the funding available, resulting in the majority of applications being supported in full or in part. All successful projects will return monitoring information, which will be used to inform ongoing activity. Thanks, Convener. Happy to take any questions.
The postman's obviously made it further round his round, and he's at your house. I'll be someone else before the end of the meeting, I've no doubt. Can I just sit and say, looking at the Food for All Fund, but when the administration made the money available for this, it was a little bit of a sort of shot in the dark, in that we knew exactly what was out there that needed support, but we obviously needed the groups to come forward to ask for it. And I'm very impressed by the range of organisations that have come forward and the breadth of work that they're doing. It's not just about providing food, it's about providing sustainability, it's about education. There's a whole host of things in here, and I think it really does, it shows I think we should be very proud of the number of organisations that are working in this sector, and they're doing it in a creative way, and they're doing it in a collaborative way. And I think this fund has just given them a little bit of additional help to continue the good work they're doing. So I'm really quite heartened and impressed by what came forward to do this. And I'm looking forward to hearing how they get on as well, with the monitoring coming back later on in the year. Councillor Dodds.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to make a comment, if that's okay. I would just like to thank the Stirling Food Partnership and the Voluntary Enterprise for giving us an amount of money, the larder at Cornton, which will be well received, and we've already started inroads in relation to certain items that we did in our application form, and we're having a meeting again this afternoon. So we are really appreciative of the fund that we got, and it'll make a lot of difference to a lot of people. Just to let you know, we fed 105 on Tuesday.
I know from the award that you're producing a book. Is this a recipe book, Douglas? Have you contributed a recipe?
Well, what we're trying to do is to give out recipe cards, and we're trying to look now at trying to do a cooking demonstration once a month to try and get people to come along, to encourage them to cook, and then hopefully take the stuff home. But that's our next step.
Well, I mean, it's a great project that you're involved with at Cornton. So, you know, I hope you take this away as to keep up the good work, because it's heartening to see that. Councillor McPherson. Oh, you're on mute, Councillor McPherson.
Apologies, I'm muted there. Yeah, I'm delighted to see all these groups coming up and doing some great stuff. I'm not going to be parochial about this and mention the stuff in my ward, but I'm really pleased to see the Canvas Barn Wall Garden one. Something I did a bit of walking up there. That's going to be a brilliant project, and I really do welcome that one. You know, I visited Ladies of the Rock yesterday, Chair, and I think this is the challenge. I would say, looking at all the groups there, it's finding that, especially the ones where people go and get food in the queue, and I know, speaking to homeless service users, that there's a real stigma if you're having to queue for food. And I know what the Ladies of the Rock told me do, and it's a different client group where it's more people in the community. They deliver to people. So I think my question to Leslie would be, and I know startups Stirling do food packages, but they're not in the perpetuity, Leslie, here. But I'm thinking, you know, and there's no shortage of food. And I was down at the Salvation Army last week, and they feed people, 20-odd people there every day. And, you know, I would like to see some kind of group coming forward that does specifically specialise in people with addictions, homeless people. And I think there's a gap there, and if we could maybe try and encourage the establishment of some group, because of the stigma of queuing if you're homeless, it puts people off.
Is that a comment or a question, Councillor?
It's a question to Leslie. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie. Tell me if there's a group that you already think that does that, because I know speak to service users there isn't. But is there anything we can do to try and help establish it?
I think, to my knowledge, Councillor McPherson, there isn't a group specifically. I think there are a range of groups who would probably support some of the client group that you refer to. I mean, I think you're absolutely right that there is a difficulty in the dignity issue in emergency food provision. I think all the groups who are involved in that recognise it. It's very much that balance between people who need food, you know, as you very well know, you've expressed it many times, people who need food, but how do we make sure that is provided in a dignified manner? It is challenging. I think what we've seen through the work of the food partnerships is there's huge value in all of the groups coming together to share what they're doing, to learn from each other, to look at gaps. So, you know, given that's identified as an issue, I think through the work of the partnerships, and through, in fact, the monitoring returns that we've referenced in terms of the food partnership, we'll begin to gather some evidence and see whether or not there is an opportunity for third sector to attempt to meet that gap. But it's very much an ongoing. It's a continuum, I think, between providing that emergency food provision and supporting people into a place where, you know, as you know, they can be supported to be in a better place to feed themselves. But that's not going to happen overnight. It's a longer term challenge, that one.
Isabel McKnight, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. I think there is a gap in terms of our ability to signpost without stigmatising. So I think that's something that we'll take back and consider. Stuart, Leslie and I will have a conversation around that, because you're absolutely right to raise that. And I think a lot of that is around stigma. But as Leslie says, it's not something that we can plug the gap shorter term, but I think it is something that we need to discuss with our partners, and particularly our colleagues in the Health and Social Care Partnership. So it's probably a conversation with Wendy, but we'll take that on board, because it's a valid point that you raised, Councillor.
Councillor McPherson?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for letting me come back in, and I'll welcome it, because I know when, like Douglas, when we were doing the soup kitchen, we were delivering to people because it was the stigma coming along, getting a car or a bag of food and walking away. That's the way to deal with it, and you know, and I know Douglas's group does that, and I know they actually do that for some people in Cortland. It's a great project they've got there, but yeah, there's definitely a gap there, and I welcome Isabel and Leslie's assurance that we'll look at it. Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions on this report? Okay, just please, Leslie, pass on the thanks of the committee to these groups for all the hard work that they're doing, and keep up the good work, and we look forward to supporting them going forward. Okay, that's item 8, I'm just checking what we asked to do, just consider and comment, which we've done, which then takes us on to item number 9, which is an update on Big Noise Fallin. I believe this is Leslie Gallagher, and we've also got Vicky Williams from Systema Scotland as well, but over to Leslie to introduce this report.
Yes, thanks, Kevin. Very briefly from myself, this report, as members will be aware, summarises the ongoing work of Big Noise Fallin, which was launched in September 2021. The report notes that Big Noise Fallin is a brass-focused programme working with primary 5 to 7 classes during the school day and primary 5 and primary 6 age children after school. Uptake and engagement across these provisions has been very high. Big Noise Fallin also held its first holiday club in October 21, which saw on average 20 children attending each day. And healthy food, related to our previous conversation, was provided as part of the holiday club. Wider community engagement activities have also been established, and at the time of writing the report, plans for winter and indeed Christmas celebrations were underway. But as you've noted, Convener Vicky Williams is here, who's the team leader within Big Noise, within Systema, and will be able to give more information if required. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Farmer and I went to Fallin Primary School for the launch event, and hearing both the children from Fallin Primary, but also the professional musicians who were there, and playing some of the tunes that they were in the programme, it was just fantastic. It was fantastic to hear music played that well. And it was also fantastic to see the enthusiasm for the kids for what they're about to learn. And certainly, this administration has said right from the beginning that we wanted to see the fantastic work that's been done in the Raploch over the last decade moved out into other communities. And it's great that we finally managed to do that in Fallin. And it's great to see the Fallin community. I know from the report, Fallin community also taking to this project as well. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what happens. And Vicky, certainly thank you and your colleagues for what you've done. I don't know if you've got anything you wish to add to this before we go for questions. I mean, if you've been working within the school, how's it been going?
Yeah, things are going. Oh, sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Vicky, Head of Centre for Big Noise Raploch. Things are continuing to go well. When we initially started planning this, it was pre-COVID, so things have changed quite considerably. And our next, I guess, big step is getting it out of the school and actually getting the kids performing in the community. We're aware that parents still haven't had that opportunity to see their children play live, and I think that's a bit of a moment for every child learning an instrument. But also they're playing, fully formed in a band now, which is quite impressive. So we're looking forward to that. And we also have our first community volunteer, which is another really positive step for us. We went to the volunteering fair, which I think was just at the end of December, and excited about that, and starting to look ahead to next year and the first summer school in Fallin. Just one thing I realised wasn't in there, and it's slightly linked to the previous item, is that every day we pick up the kids from class and they get that healthy snack every day as part of the offer in Fallin. So I think apart from that, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, before I ask my question, Chair, I think like yourself, I visited the school during COP26 and spoke to some of the kids who have taken participating in this. Absolutely brilliant. It's going down really well. And I've said previously, this follows on for a great tradition in the mining villages, the brass bands and such like that. And it's brilliant. And some of their great grandfathers have played in the colliery bands and that. So I think it's absolutely great what they're doing, and the uptake is really, really good. I'm pleased to see that. I think the question I would have for Vicky in relation to, again, going back to what I said in the previous paper was, about expanding and getting back to face and getting audiences back in for public to go and see that. I said early 22 pandemic, this is at 2.7 on page 54. With the wider community, where are we with that, Vicky? 2.7. What's the plans? Are we on schedule to do that? Have you got a copy of the report?
I do, yep. For us, so this is a common theme for us across Raploch and Fallin, and we were really hopeful to be able to do this for Christmas, but Omicron put a stop to that. So for us, the challenge in Fallin particularly is it's a school building, and there's still the guidelines there really prohibit adults coming into school, as we know. I think if the Alpha Centre, I'm not sure, I've not followed up on that yet in this term, but if that becomes a bookable space, we're quite very open. We would love that. That's one of the things that we feel like we're really missing now, is that performance opportunity. The kids come together and it leads to that performance often. So as soon as that's possible, we haven't found a way to make that possible in person yet, but we're always, any slight change that would make that, even if it's small audiences and do multiple sharing events and not specifically concerts. The other thing, I guess, for us in specifics is when we come to the Easter Club, that will be every day, and weather permitting, we can start to look at doing some outdoor events as well. It's probably a little bit early for that just yet, but certainly by Easter we would hope to be doing something face-to-face, even if it is outdoors.
Yeah, I'll come back to that briefly. No, I really welcome that, and the sooner that we can get, because I don't think it's probably not a bad lead-in time to kind of take the rough edges off their kind of learning, to be honest with you. So by Easter, I'm sure they'll be far more accomplished than they are just now, just with the learning process. But no, I remember going to a couple of concerts with the big noise down the Ratlock, and I went to the open air one, and it actually poured rain all night. So, and 2009, I think it was. So, and it was brilliant. And that's when you really do see the families engaging. And I would expect in a community like Fallin, the 70% uptake after they see the results and the performance of the kids, you may actually get it higher. So, I think it's great. It's phenomenal work. And Chair, I remember saying to you in the very first meeting of Community Plan and Regeneration, and look down the road in 5 years' time and reflect on what you've achieved. But in this committee, this is one of the good things. I think we've done quite a number of good things, but this is one, because I remember Councillor Bennison and Brisley and myself, we challenged our officials over this one, and mainly Systema about getting into other communities and named one. So it was great to see that coming through the pipeline, and it's thanks to this committee we've done it.
I concur entirely, and thank you for the comments on behalf of the committee and what we've been doing as officers and systemic. Just picking up on something, I'm intrigued to know this in terms of the 70% that take part. What's the barrier for the 30 that don't? Is it? I would know you're never going to get 100% of anybody doing anything, but is it just some of them don't like music, some of them don't think they like music? What are some of the barriers to the 30 that don't come along?
So we've been trying to kind of understand that ourselves, and it's a mix of things actually. There's a few kids that go to dancing and they're already quite committed to that. There's football that's up and running. There's some children that actually the noise bothers them. We find this across all of our centres, that actually some children just don't enjoy that environment, and we offer, there's various ways we do try and, or one of the things I would say that we really do try and do consistently is offer ways for every individual to participate, and even if that is an individual lesson and a slightly different version of big noise, we'll try and accommodate that. But we have found that actually noise and other commitments is generally the reason. It's not due to kids actually not being interested or any other reason. There is usually a tangible reason for it, but we'll keep an eye on that as we expand. Next year, the primary 4 cohort that will be eligible to join in the next academic year, there's also 46 of them, so it could be quite a big jump in numbers, and we'll see how that goes as well. It could double in size quickly.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McPherson, you mentioned a tradition of brass bands. I think I've shared this story with you before. I think I've shared it with Vicky. The Mill Hall Pipe Band. So if you indulge me for a minute with the collieries, 4 pits at Fallin over time, Mill Hall 1 and 2, which is in Springkerst now, and then 3 and 4 in Polmaze. But the Mill Hall Pipe Band were the world champions 2 years in a row back in the 1920s. So certainly the mining community that became Fallin, that was Mill Hall at the time, has got a real rich history of music, and 2 years running of the Mill Hall Pipe Band. So a lot to live up to for the kids in Fallin with the brass band, but I've absolutely no doubt they're up for the challenge. Councillor McPherson,
you're absolutely right. And the Bannockburn Colliery Silver Band, 1928. I googled earlier on there. I was aware of it. They won it. And Butlins, actually, interestingly, Butlins used to have a lot of the mining communities go there, and they still hold the competition, but they've taken the mining bit out of it, which is a real shame, But no, we have a brilliant tradition. You mentioned Mill Hall number 2, Chair. My grandfather worked there, unfortunately died there before nationalisation. So it's fantastic. It's The band were called the Silver Band. If you Google that, 1928, they were an award-winning one, but it was all drawn from all around eastern villages, you know. Fantastic bands.
Yeah. We've got too much in common today. My great-grandfather passed away in Millhall too as well. But anyway, we're diverging a little bit into the history of Millhall, but there's so much to talk about. And I think that's I suppose if I can just finish this previous sentence saying that is really what Big Noise is doing in Fallin. That sense of enthusiasm and telling stories through music, through history, it just adds to that, and it's great to see. So thank you very much, Vicky. Keep up the good work. As a reasonably easy time of it you've got in this paper today. It's always nice when we've got good things to say in papers. So thank you very much for coming along today. Right, on to item 10, the archives. Is this Crawford or Stewart? Who's talking to this one? Stewart? Crawford.
Yeah, good morning, convener. Good morning, committee. Crawford Bell, Community Development Manager, Economic Development and Communities. So the archives report in front of you this morning is an update and progress report on the feasibility study that was commissioned in November last year. As you know, archives is a statutory provision for the council, and the current provision down in Springkers, we estimate has around about 2 years left in terms of acquisitions and floor space. So the feasibility study has been commissioned to look at alternative premises for the archive service, and the report you have in front of you gives you an update on the initial appraisal that was done by the firm commissioned to do that, Archetype, who are based in Edinburgh. Archetype are excellent at this work. They have a long track history of working in library and archives buildings and services, so we're delighted to be able to appoint them to the study. As you see, the initial appraisal was attached as an appendix, and the report is put before you this morning for comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask, in terms of 2.1.1 on page 58, the current building will run out of capacity in approximately 2 years' time, given ongoing rate of acquisitions and deposits. Now, you know, if we are to replace the archives, it's going to cost a hefty amount of money. What happens in 2 years? Is that a hard deadline? And if they run out of space, what is the immediate consequence of that? Is it they stop taking things in, they can't store more things, they've got to make decisions about what maybe to take off a shelf to make more room? What is the immediate consequence if we get to 2 years and run out?
The 2 years is an approximation, Councillor Kane. So that's not a hard deadline as we understand at the moment. So we believe we're in good time in terms of commissioning this report. But you're correct in saying that if we got to the stage where we had to look at archives, there are things that would have to be stored in archives in terms of the air conditioning, in terms of the perishable nature of some of the archives. Others could be stored in safe and alternative premises should the need arise.
In terms of the statutory provision, I think when we think of archives, we tend to think of the Bonnie Prince Charlie letter of 1746 or the James VI letters about witchcraft and the rest of it. But the statutory provision, I'm assuming, is less about these documents and more council agendas and the like, things that we're required.
Yes, and access to public records, and also land registry and things like that for legal requirements.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if anyone else wants to come in, I'm happy to do it. I've got a few more questions, but I'll keep going until I see a hand. The feasibility study sort of is helpful in one sense, in that it tells us, I think, what we don't want to do. I certainly know that we've been talking about archives and the need to look at this for a while, and whether we go into the Thistle Centre or take over a vacant building in the town centre or build something. It seems to be suggesting that taking over a vacant space is probably problematic in itself if it's not part of a bigger item. So are we now discounting that, do you think, and looking at new build, or is there still some consideration to be given at this stage to going into, for example, the Thistles?
The direction of travel that the feasibility is taken, as I understand it at the moment, and this report will be published by the end of February. We've been assured that by Archetype. So there are two there are two approaches they're taking. They're looking at the approach you just described there in terms of the relocation into a city centre location, perhaps with other services combined. And then what they will provide on the report is not the minimum requirements, but the requirements for a new build, should we choose to go down that line as well. So it will essentially say to future-proof your archive service for the next 20 to 25 years. This is the spec of the building that you need in terms of a new build, but it will also look at the option of a relocation and perhaps what you say in terms of a bigger project that perhaps the council would find attractive, perhaps something that's a bit more visionary. So both will be presented in the final report.
And in terms of the new build site, I know that we looked at Station Square, as I'm calling it. That's gone back a bit. The archives have said that they want 50% of the space on the ground floor, whereas that would have to be multi-storey. So I'm just trying to get a sense from this. It was nice to see the staff had been asked what they want to see, and I think the staff had been asked across the board, because it was not just more shelving, it was showers so we can cycle to work. So that's fantastic that we've asked everybody what they thought. But what I was struggling a little bit was to pick out what was a wish list and what was a requirement. So in terms of the Station Square one being not considered ideal because 50% of the space couldn't be on the ground floor, is that a deal breaker for that site, or just?
It's not a deal breaker. The architects, being architects, came up with a creative solution, which actually they've shown us some brief ideas of what could be achieved on that site in terms of a central core. So a visible central core as you walked into the building, where the repository ran through the core of the building with services round about it, in a kind of big glass feature. So like I say, they have a long track record of designing very beautiful and interesting buildings based around libraries and repositories, and this was one of the solutions that they came up with, the Station Road site. There were further questions around about that in terms of access for building, and also one of the huge considerations for archives is access for fire service. So obviously, if there is an incident regarding fire, the archives need to be protected. So I think the biggest deal breaker perhaps for the Station Road site would have been access for fire services, but that would need to be another assessment that would be done further down the line if we chose to pursue that site. Yeah, there was an interesting element of that, because that would discount most of the town centre if we were going from a can fire services access it really easily. That was the only part of the report I found difficult to get into, which was things like the railway line. There was an awful lot of talk about the railway line causing vibrations as being very much an undesirable thing, but most of the town centre is going to suffer from that, I would suggest. So am I taking from this that the direction of travel seems to be discounting the Thistle Centre, continuing to look at Station Square, but also then expanding out to look at other sites where we could possibly put a new build in? Is that sort of summary of where we are? That's correct, yeah. Stuart?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Just to come in, I wouldn't say at this stage we discount anything until we've seen the final report. I think the way the architects will present it is that the levels of desirability, if you like, and just because in any report we do, the consultant recommends a course of action, there's obviously different considerations, and we scrutinise and look at that. So the final report for this stage isn't far away, and I think at that point we can take a good look at it and look at what they're saying. But at this stage, I wouldn't want to say that anything's ruled out, because they're still to present the finalised findings.
Okay, well, like it's a comment for me just to finish up. And I said I'm not seeing any hands. It's obviously me that's wanted to delve into this one. It's heartening to see some of the other things that have been talked about the archives. I think our archives at the moment, it can be perceived a little bit, if you've not seen it, as that big building down Springcurst that no one really knows what it's for unless you go into it. I've spent time in it researching some stuff, so once you get in the front door and speak to the staff and see what's happening, it's a fantastic resource for the council, but its current position, I think, lends itself to being misunderstood by the wider community. So it was really heartening to see that in the designs we're talking about doing more and making it public facing, making genealogy part of the offering and so on. So overall, it's a good report that summarises what we're trying to do, but it also summarises the challenges ahead. So thank you for bringing it to committee today. I'm not seeing other questions. That's fine. Okay, so we'll now move on to, in fact, apologies, but we're just asked to note that, consider and comment. Right, okay, item 11, Gypsy Roma Traveller History Month. Who, I'm thinking Leslie for this one. Leslie.
It is, yes. Thanks, convener. This report provides further background on Gypsy Roma Traveller History Month and describes a process for local celebration of this in June 2022. Gypsy Roma Traveller History Month provides an opportunity to raise awareness, learn about and celebrate the cultural life of Gypsy Roma travellers. Resources are available to support local areas participating in the month, and these are shown at Appendix 1 and 2 to this report. These will be used to support the creation of a local programme, and an officer has been tasked to coordinate the work and will engage closely with colleagues, obviously in communications and in housing, as well as Gypsy Roma travellers themselves and wider partners to develop and implement activities during the month. These are likely to include work in schools, libraries and in community settings, using culture and the arts, education and opportunities for community engagement. The report also notes ongoing work within the Community Planning Partnership to develop a local action plan to improve lives of Gypsy Roma travellers aligned to the national strategy previously considered by committee. This is anticipated to be completed first draft by the end of this month. Thanks, convener. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just to say, it's a good report. You know, I think as a society, we've got quite a way to go to move from the sort of stigma that this community's had over the years. And whilst I'm not in any way suggesting this will solve that in one go, it is a very welcome move in the right direction. I note that you've referenced the approach we've taken to 16 days of action and Challenge Poverty Week when it comes to how we approach this from a comms communications point of view. And again, I think that's very welcome, in the work that we've done with these two campaigns should help us in this one. So no, I welcome this report. It's probably long overdue. So pleased to see it. Councillor McGill, then Councillor McPherson.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, a very good report, and it's quite pleasant to see the amount of work that's went into this. Excuse me. I just wondered on page 98, you're talking about health and the comment that the Gypsy traveller community don't use health particularly well, the health services, and we know that, we've known that for a while. Just wondering what can we do to improve that. I know that the general population often complain of not being able to access the health care that they would like, so this is you know, obviously they're even further away from that. I just wondered, it's one thing to acknowledge it, but what can we do about it?
I'm not sure if Wendy wanted to come in specifically on that, but what I can say, Councillor McGill, and thanks for the question, is that we've asked those areas of improvement that were identified nationally, we've used those in a template that has gone out to inform the local action plan. So all partners, including the Health and Social Care Partnership and NHS Forth Valley, are currently compiling a response to that. So we should see, you know, the kind of detailed response in that template, which will then form the action plan. But I see Wendy's got her hand up. She's probably more knowledgeable than I am on the specifics. Thank you.
Wendy?
Thank you, convener, and thank you, Councillor McGill. And just to build on what Leslie's saying, this is absolutely part of our locality planning, which you'll be aware of is coming through the Integration Joint Board. And we would absolutely, if Leslie and I work together to ensure that there is clear access and that we have navigators to support our Gypsy travellers into primary care as well as into acute care and all the pathways in between. Very happy to work with Leslie around that work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McPherson?
Yeah, I think in next year, I think in relation to what Randy just said, it's just unfortunate that that's not happening already. I think that should have been happening long before now, to be honest with you, but it maybe was. But anyway, again, the pandemic changed everything. But I think it's a great report, and again, it's another achievement of this, the administration, bringing this on the agenda. The COSLA document was a game changer. However, again, the pandemic's impacted that. And I've attended a couple of COSLA meetings on a working group on that, and I've met David Donaldson, who's the champion in Scotland of the Gypsy travelling community. And I think that if there's a couple of things that the actions in here actually miss, to be quite honest with you, bluntly, is the percentage, and I know the Gypsy travelling community, especially David Donaldson, would like to see a percentage of all budgets go towards Gypsy travelling and not have to rely on Scottish Government grant funding as we do for the housing investment we're doing there just now. So I think there's a gap here. And Leslie, in relation to the point you made about the work in schools, because that was one of my key questions, because I know this is community planning and regeneration, not education, but explain to me what your intention is to do the work in the schools, because everybody knows if you want to bring down barriers and bring down discrimination and change it, as you educate people and really to get some kind of project in the schools, probably in the Ratloch would probably be the best in the Rat for the Gypsy about the week in June. I think that would be brilliant. So, Leslie, go and give me a little more flavour of what you think is going to happen in the schools.
Leslie?
Yep, I can't, thanks, Councillor McPherson. I can't be specific, but exactly as you've just described, that's certainly what's in my head. And a lot of the reading and the research that I've done, these seem to be, these projects, particularly in primary schools, but not exclusively, these seem to be very successful in raising awareness and challenging maybe a lack of cultural awareness in the young age. And I'm sure that schools would be able and willing to help work with us, including probably local resources like libraries. I think library set is another useful setting. So what we'll do is, and we're really working on this now because we need a long run-in period, is engage all our partners, including our key services, to present them with the resources, because there are a lot of resources, and really have discussions to see what's possible, what can we do, and can we start working on it now? Because if we're celebrating in June, we need to start working on it now. So I would hope that exactly as you've described, we would see that happening, but it will be very much the conversations that the coordinating officer will have with colleagues in the Learning and Education Service. Thanks.
Chair, can I come back on that? Leslie, obviously the second question I had was to do with the draft action plan. It's page 88, 2.14, finalisation end of February. You know, and I know this is going to be an officer for an executive board. I wouldn't mind seeing that because, you know, based on the conversations I've had with the Gypsy travelling community throughout the country, I know what they feel that's missing. And I've raised it about budget allocations and such like. So it'd be good to see. Are we on schedule for that, number one? Are we on schedule for this draft plan, action plan?
Yes, I would hope so. I've already had a couple of returns from community planning partners, so people are very much aware of it and returning the template. And I've certainly allocated time to draw all that together. So at the moment, I can say yes, Councillor McPherson, and I'm happy to take guidance as to how that can be shared with elected members.
Okay, Chair, the last thing I would say in this, I think, you know, it's heartrending. See when you read that, a road less travelled, Gypsy travellers in Scotland, and the heritage and that, we should be very proud of having the Gypsy travellers in our community. I think there's a fantastic heritage here and very much part of our community. And, you know, and the rest of me not to thank Isabel Knight and Stephen Clark from the housing, because housing, we've spent a lot of money down there, all government grant funded. And the challenge for me is, you know, should we be getting not just solely reliant on Scottish Government funding? Let's put money in our budgets. There are residents, and it's wrong that we should just be not relying on handouts. I'm tempted to say that, but it's not. So they should be part of the budget process as it makes it clear in here that. And I know the discussions I'm going to be having with our group shortly will be to try and include some normal budgeting. That's what the Gypsy travelling community want. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just echoing what you're saying, Councillor McPherson, I think, you know, in terms of what we can do as a committee, this very specifically was a piece of work around marking Gypsy Roma Traveller History Month, and I think that's good to see. But you're absolutely correct. And certainly, you as housing portfolio or deputy housing portfolio holder can push that. We you know, Councillor McGill and the Education Committee, we've all got opportunities to do it. So if this gives us a catalyst to refocus our efforts, then I think we can all get behind that. Leslie, just in a general thing, I'm conscious that this is our last committee meeting of this administration. There is an election coming up as well, and then this History Month. I want to this particular part in the election cycle isn't going to cause problems with this. You're comfortable this is going to get done, and you're going to get the full level of support to make sure that we're doing this. I think the last thing we want to do, given this is the first year where we've mapped it in this way, is find that it's hamstrung a little bit by just where we are in the election cycle. You're comfortable that you've got the support across everything that you need to get it done?
Yes, I mean, I think this is timely that we get the approval and the noting of the report today. I mean, certainly it becomes operational activity. We've already raised it through the community planning partnership. We've identified an officer. Those conversations are already happening. I will take guidance nearer the time in terms of the involvement of elected members, but I'm sure my governance colleagues will keep me right on that.
Good, thank you very much. In that case, we have noted item 11, so I think no other questions. Okay, we will move on to the next one, which is the sport, physical activity and healthy living strategy. Leslie, I think you're introducing this, but you've got Dougie Porteous from Active Stirling with you as well.
Yes, but we'll do a bit of a co-introduction if that's okay, convener. I will just briefly introduce the main body of the report. So thank you. This report updates on the refresh and review of the sport, physical activity and healthy living strategy. Obviously, as members will be very much aware, the impact of the pandemic on the sector has been one of the most severe. But however, partnership working has continued throughout within the various levels of restrictions and guidelines in terms of the pandemic. The strategy itself, following review, remains appropriate as we move towards recovery, and to that extent will not be changed. However, the delivery plan has been reviewed to reflect the impact of COVID and the priorities for recovery, and it's included at Appendix 1. The strategy leadership group has been re-established. In fact, it met this week, and I was certainly gratified to see the breadth and depth of partner engagement. Partners are very keen to go back to a lot of the activity that they wanted to do and were curtailed to doing with the pandemic. And there are certainly some opportunities, most notably the World Cycling Championships, to really engage in Stirling in that national and international field again. Active Stirling are contracted to lead on the strategy work, given their significant role in the sector, and they have a performance indicator aligned to that through their performance framework. So accordingly, Dougie Porteous leads the strategy and has been heavily involved in the work on the refresh of the delivery plan. So I'll ask Dougie just briefly, convener, if that's okay, to introduce that aspect of the report.
Dougie, welcome to committee. What do you want to add?
Thank you, convener. Thank you, Leslie. Yes, I'm Dougie Porteous, the Sport, Physical Activity and Inclusion Manager with Active Stirling. I've been leading strategy leadership group. Just to probably reference a couple of the appendices that we've compiled with the report, and the first one is the delivery plan, which is continually evolving as we navigate our way through restrictions and as partners and their staff teams get back to normality. So, but that reflects the 5 ambition areas of the strategy around schools and education, club and community sport and physical activity, active and healthy lifestyles, profile places and environment, and also leadership and accountability. So that's Appendix 1. You will also note at point 2.5 in the report that we have some cross-cutting themes across that leadership group, which the delivery plan will, as we move forward, will reflect as well. Appendix 2 is a report through some funding that we secured through Changing Lives Through Sport and Physical Activity Fund, and reflects a project that we've been working with Change, Grow or Live, specifically supporting people recovering from drug and alcohol misuse to engage in a person-centred exercise referral programme. And I'm delighted to say that following that funding, we've actually sustained that project and embedded it into our wider exercise referral provision. And the final appendix is regarding our work around club development and through Club Sport Stirling, and is I suppose a highlight through the annual general meeting, which was last year, of Club Sport Stirling, and our ongoing support to our network of over 100 sports clubs across Stirling, who are doing a phenomenal job navigating their own way through restrictions and engaging in the outcomes that we're trying to achieve through the strategy. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Dougie, thanks for that. It's a good report. As the final meeting of this administration, we're also reflecting a little bit in the last 5 years, and that Active Stirling have come through the pandemic not quite fighting fit, but certainly still able to fight, is nothing short of remarkable. I think the whole fitness sector just, had a particularly tough time over the pandemic. So it's great to see that we're talking now about recovery. Can I get a sense of the pandemic almost stopped a lot of this work overnight? Can I get a sense that it's restarted with the same vigour that it stopped? That we are now putting the pandemic behind us in terms of where we can put our resources and our assets, and that you are now, I'm going to mix my metaphors here, back in the pitch, bats swinging, all the rest. Are we now? Has this started again with vigour?
Absolutely, as referenced in the report, we've had the sector has had a lot of staff on furlough or repurposed roles, but that's very much changed at the end of the furlough scheme, and staff are much more, I think, focused around the role that sport and physical activity can play in changing people's lives. And yes, there are still a few restrictions around which are limiting some of our activity. Schools and education has been referenced already, but yes, we're back on the pitch and very much driving forward, and a lot of our plans are geared around the academic year side of things. So we're within my team in particular, we've just been meeting to plan for that new academic year just earlier this week. So a lot of good work happening, a lot of drive around the Changing Lives theme, which underpins the strategy.
Are you expecting a tougher time over the next year or 18 months, given that I think people are out of the habit of engaging in sport, and also there's probably some bad habits developed, I know I could go out and exercise more. I make no secret of that, but it's been tougher the last couple of years than it has before. Are you prepared for what I suspect may be a bigger issue to deal with than perhaps it would have been pre-pandemic?
Yeah, I think through the leadership group we've identified that some people will require more intensive support to become physically active, and that's one of the overarching priorities that we were discussing actually earlier this week, is how can we support people more on a one-to-one basis. We are aware, of course, that some people have been more active as a result of the pandemic and with restrictions, and taking advantage of getting out, walking and cycling and running and jogging and so on as well. So I think we've got to consider both aspects. Some people, yes, absolutely need that further support to engage in physical activity, and that's something we've identified through the leadership group, and we're now working that up as a priority to figure out, well, how do we support that. But others, there's an opportunity with them to get them further engaged in sport and physical activity, because they've used the pandemic to actually get out and do a wee bit more. So it's a mixed approach, we're looking at how we resource all of that.
Okay, Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Dougie, I'm looking at page 1, 2, 3. I'm looking at this kind of, to a certain extent, a historical report. It's from April 2021 to October, date completed November, and I'm looking here in page 1 to 8, and I really do welcome the CGL link up. I think that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant here. But it said at the start of page 1 to 8 and A6 here, the COVID pandemic has impacted their ability. Where are we since this report was done, the face-to-face stuff? Your 3 questions, that's my first one, okay?
Thanks, Councillor McPherson. Yes, we're back to face-to-face support within our whole exercise referral programme. Obviously, if clients through that are not comfortable, then we can provide a virtual support mechanism to them. So we're back now since this report to full face-to-face support with clients.
And are these all referrals from CGL to yourselves?
Yes.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
So with that project, we had 31 referrals through the duration of that project working, and it came through CGL caseworkers working with our exercise referral team as part of that, and we've been able to sustain that project, as I embed it into our wider Active Living for Life provision.
Okay,
Alistair, just before you come back into it, it's that 3-letter acronym thing, CGL, for the purposes of everybody else.
Yes, Change, Grow, Live. They're charity working with those recovering from drug and alcohol misuse.
Sorry, Councillor, the first one you go.
Right, in relation to where is this held and how often, how many hours a week?
So individual clients will get one-to-one support, initial consultation, identify what activity they would like to engage in, and then they're supported through a 12-week journey. So we'll connect in with them every week. Physically, we'll connect in with them on every 3 weeks to check in and make sure that they are still engaging in the programme. Once they finish their 12-week provision, they're then referred into our wider exercise referral programme and get a further 12 weeks of support through our wider exercise referral, again with similar timelines of check-ins on a weekly basis, and then one-to-one consultations on every 3 weeks.
Okay, Chair, I've got one or two other quick points. So we've got 31 referrals from CGL. They come once a week. How many hours roughly a week?
I don't know that. I don't have that information, but I can get that. We could track that through their usage at the peak and some of our classes as well.
Yeah, I think, Chair, the last thing the question I was wanting to ask you, and I know that always look about what barriers could be potentially put up here, and again, you have stigma and transport links. So, is there any transport put on? How does the referral process work?
Yeah, there's no transport put on. We are expanding our locations from exercise referral provision. So we have our kind of centre at the Peak and Forth Bank Stadium, but we're now progressing that into Raploch Community Campus, and further work looking to re-establish our exercise referral provision in Fintry at Fintry Community Sport Hub as well. So, and we anticipate that we'll have further sites aligned to some of our work around the locality action plan areas as well.
Chair, last question, honest, and I think that's page 129, and this is the one that worries me, Dougie. At page 129 here, it says we focus on more younger clients, right? And anybody looks at the Office of National Statistics, look at all the drug deaths, it's people in their middle age who've probably been long-term addicts. That to me is the client group or the age group we should be trying to focus on. Yes, younger people, you've probably got a better chance of long-term saving their lives, but I take it they're not just giving up on the age group that is more likely to die through alcohol and drug addiction. It just worries me you've only got younger clients, you're focusing on younger clients.
Yes, coincidentally, that there was a report which I think may follow at the Community Planning Partnership Senior Officer Group meeting, given the highlighting the age groups of people involved in this, and that's something that we've reflected and will look to work across the age bands. So yes, that will be a piece of work that we'll take forward, and it's not just working with younger people.
Chair, that's a really important issue for me, because it's people my age. I went to school with a lot of these people, and I meet them socially, and 59, 60-year-old people who I just hope society hasn't given up on them. That's how they feel. And by putting in the report that you're focusing on young people, I think it takes the positives out of the report, because I think it's a great report and it's a brilliant initiative, but please try and focus on old codgers like me and my age, you know. These people are their fathers, their brothers, their sons. We shouldn't give up on them, you know, just because of their age. And I really think you really need to refocus. But the guys are brilliant initiative you're doing. Please continue, but get people a little bit older then as well, please.
I think, Councillor McPherson, I wholeheartedly agree with you. This is happening too much for us today, Councillor McPherson. We're wholeheartedly agreeing too much. I'm saying that with my tongue firmly in my cheek. I think we've got to look at this report in the context of the full sport, physical activity and healthy living strategy, because that's something, the points you've made is something this committee has made quite clear all the way through the 5 years we've been meeting, is that it has to tackle everybody. I've made the point to Active Stirling themselves that, you know, I don't see myself, or I'm now starting to see myself in some of the images that we've got in annual reports. I didn't at the start of term. So, you know, recognising that middle-aged, elderly, young, everybody needs to be fitter, and not everybody likes the gym. I mean, your comment about transport, to my mind, there's two parts to that. Is how do you help people get to the peak? How do you help people not have to go to the peak? How do we get a lot of this activity to where they are? You know, when I, when I reach out to things that are, you know, could get me fitter, Couch to 5K is the one that comes up very quickly. But, you know, running is not something I'm attracted to at all. But, you know, if somebody wants to start me, you know, let's go for a game of badminton and we'll talk. But that approach of helping everybody every age is, I think, built into the sport, physical activity and healthy living strategy. So whilst this report here is perhaps not doing that, I would encourage Active Stirling and Stirling Council going forward to just double down on what we were saying within the strategy and get back to this post-pandemic approach to saying we all need to be fitter, but pushing everyone towards the gym is missing out a massive amount of people who simply don't like going to the gym for whatever reason. When we talked earlier on to Big Noise about the 30% of people who are not engaging, that approach is also interesting with sport and physical activity. You know, what is it about those that aren't engaging that we can do? I'm heartened by how you're doing it, Dougie, at Active Stirling. I think your focus is in the right direction, but as Councillor McPherson says, we do need to double down on it and make sure that no one is left behind. Councillor McPherson?
Just a brief point, Chair. If you're looking for some novel way to exercise, I was speaking to your dad in the golf course yesterday. Look, the 18 holes your dad, and beer in the clubhouse after it as well. So there you go. Join your dad.
Well, since I've played golf, I'll go golf with you, come badminton, playing with me. Table tennis, Alistair, that might be a good starting point. Just to say also another comment from me, I note that at the start of January, Active Stirling started offering £25 memberships to individuals. It's been a bit of a bugbear of mine over the last 5 years that if you get a group of 4 people together, you were able to access the peak a lot cheaper than if you were a single parent with a teenage child. So whilst I recognise there will be those who are a little bit miffed at their £20 all-in membership for a party of 4 is going up, I am deeply grateful to Active Stirling for recognising that not everybody can get a group of 4, and I wish you well with the £25 membership. I think that's a real good move. And I hope that encourages more people to do it. So I've been pushing you for that for 5 years. I'm delighted to see that's coming, or that has started. Right, any other comments from anyone on this report? In that case, Dougie, keep up the good work. And we will move on to item 13, re-establishment of area forums. Crawford, I suspect, for this one.
Yes, thank you, Convener. Good morning again, Crawford Bell, Community Development Manager. So this report follows on from previous committee where we agreed that the community development team would go out and do a consultation with community groups, community councils and other interested parties on the re-establishment of area forums. Attached to the report is the findings of that consultation, and we were pleased with the response. It was a relatively high response given the fairly niche element contained within the consultation. Again, you'll see from the report that there is significant support in the community for the re-establishment of area forums. So based on the data that's come back, based on the conversations we had within communities, the community development team will appoint an officer on a fixed term contract to lead the work on re-establishing area forums. As well as the consultation, the community development team carried out a quick survey of area forums and how they operate in other areas and other models of best practice, which is contained in his appendix as well. So there'll be further work done on that, further consultation to speak to our communities in terms of what model they would see as working, and that what will take over the year, where we then re-establish area forums into self-governing organisations, self-supporting organisations with a soft touch supportive role coming from the community development team and other services within Stirling Council. So the report is there to be considered, and noted that an officer will be appointed on a fixed term contract to re-establish area forums. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Crawford. I'm delighted to hear this, delighted to read this report. I think this is the right move. We've talked a lot today about how we need to get back meeting in person, regardless of the pandemic. It's too easy to hide, to focus entirely on what we can do digitally when it comes to consultations and talking with our citizens. And whilst it's a phenomenal resource to do things digitally, looking people in the eye can give you much more information than sometimes you can get in an email. It's something we've all probably found in Microsoft Teams, that that even being able to read body language and get a sense of how people are interacting, there really is no substitute for doing that in person. Reading some of the responses, the thing that sort of comes through that sort of needs a little bit of work. I say this as a former community council chair, that I'm reading within this that some of the community councils themselves seem to be a little bit suspicious of whether or not an area forum may be a rival power base within a community, and I'm sort of keen to get you to engage with community councils to make sure that that isn't the case. It's not duplicating the work of community councils. It's not even setting an agenda as a community council has. It's simply about giving people a forum, a space to come together and share ideas. There was another couple of comments that said, well, I'm not really sure where it is, but I'll learn as I go along. And I think I'd say back to whoever said that, this is about you bringing your ideas to this to make it work. It's not about us going out and telling you what we think should be done, but certainly within community councils, I think there's probably a little bit more reassurance that's required just to keep them happy and on side, which is always a good idea. Is that something you think we could do, Crawford?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the information that we've gathered there around about models of best practice would be things that we would take to the table and have those discussions with community councils in particular, but other community groups as well. And we would decide on a model that was acceptable and we felt was the best model to adopt for the Stirling Council area.
Yeah, I think when you look at the fact that we've got the petitions panel, we've got the deputations policy, we've got area forums. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that the council is looking for as many ways as possible to engage, and that's got to be welcome. Councillor Dodds.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've just got a couple of comments actually. What will be the long-term financial plan, and what do you think is required to maintain the links in the future? I mean, I sat on the forum when I was chair of the Bridge of Bannow Community Council. It was the Wallace Forum, and I think to try and encourage and get it back, and bearing in mind that there's some community councils still not up and running. For example, the Cornton's not up and running, so the officer who's going to deal with this has got a very, very challenging role. And I know there are a number of community councils, and I know Dunblane have already indicated that they wouldn't want to take part in any forum. So this is going to be difficult to promote it, and it's going to be difficult to have it in the future if we don't actually put the effort in and give the right support. So I take it there will be support for it, and we're going to have the amount of financial monies or plan to enable this. It's not going to be just 1 year, is it? Because you've appointed an officer for 1 year. Is that going to finish after 1 year, or are you going to hopefully still continue with what he's doing?
Apologies, Councillor. Thanks for the comment. What we would plan to do after the first year, given that we anticipate that first year in terms of the establishment of the area forums being resource heavy, the area forums would be established in such a way that they would almost be encouraged to support themselves as an accumulation of community groups. So there would be an accumulative resource there within the community themselves, but we would consider that they would need continued support led by the community development team, but across council services, whichever service was relevant, in a similar way in terms of how we support community councils. In terms of your point around about community councils, we're also already putting additional resource in there. So we are appointing a 2-year fixed post to support COVID recovery through community councils. And we've also got the Community Council Inquiry Coordinator, who's now part of the Community Development team, taking on development aspect for community councils as well. So there is fairly significant resource going out to community councils and then additionally into area forums. But as I say, at the end of that, we would anticipate that area forums would be able to, given how often they would meet, would be able to self-regulate with an ongoing level of support from the community development team and other council services.
Thank you very much. That satisfies me greatly. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, it's disappointing, Councillor Dodds, to hear what you're saying about certain community councils not engaging with it. I too went to the Wallace Forum when I was Braehead Community Council Chair, and the thing that I always remembered about being that is the knowledge share from groups was fantastic. You know, you couldn't help but learn something from what others were doing. And I think that I would hope the community councils will realise that they cannot, in the same way that I can always be a better councillor, we can always be a better council. I would hope the community councils realise they can always do more, and sharing knowledge is important. But that maybe goes back to my point earlier that I think there is a little bit of additional work needs to be done with community councils to tell them that this is not a rival, this is a complementary service to what they're doing. Stuart, Oliver, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Councillor. It's just to add to that. Yeah, Councillor Dodds is right, and the benefit of going out and engaging and getting a wide range of views as you pick up, you know, the views that are also not so positive, because they're your starting point from trying to get people engaged in it. So although the majority have come back and it's very positive, it's good to pick out and understand where resistance might be, and that comes down to the work of the team to make sure that we're very clear about the purpose and the additional benefit an area forum would bring in terms of, you know, the question that came up quite a lot, well, what's different from a community council? We have to very clearly articulate what's different and why these are in addition to community engagement and community capacity, if you like, around that, and through that articulate those benefits. And like you say, a key point to it is making sure that we get across that this is an additional opportunity to try and support learning and collaboration between communities. Many of the community councils that we deal with in community groups have got common issues. So putting communities together to discuss those and think about solutions is very important. So engagement's positive because the negative comments we get back, we can see clearly in the areas that we need to address. But positive in that respect as well, and important to highlight. You're right that it wasn't universally positive, but we can look to tackle that through these forums.
Okay, any other questions? I was going to say possibly a minor change to the recommendation. I'm not really hung up on this in the slightest, but I think it would be useful to bring this back to committee in 6 months just to get a sense of where it's going. So if we're okay, I'd just like to add on just a recommendation for bring back a report to the December or the November or whatever the meeting of council in 3 cycles time, if we want to say it like that. To give an update on the report. Is that comfortable with that? Okay, Sheila McLean in governance, are you happy to word that in a way that gets, I'm looking for it to come back to the November meeting, just to give an update. And we'll go with that is okay from Sheila. Okay, that's fine. That's and yeah, great to see. Thank you for that body of work, everybody. That one, I think that's been another good report. Right, on to item 14, Clackmannanshire and Stirling Alcohol Drug Partnership update. Wendy, do you want to introduce this one, or is it like who's introducing this one? It's Wendy. Wendy's introducing this one.
I am. Thank you very much. Wendy Forrest, and I'm the Head of Strategic Planning and Health Improvement for the Health and Social Care Partnership covering Clacks and Stirling, and I'm also the Chair of the Alcohol and Drug Partnership for Clacks and Stirling. So the report in front of you today, I'm asking for you to note the content and note the continued work around the Community Planning Partnership's response through the Alcohol and Drug Partnership. You'll notice within the background we have a new lead officer for the Alcohol and Drug Partnership, Simon Jones, who has been here 6 months now and is settling into the post. And he's looking at, in the whole family framework work, looking at how do we work with the whole family, whole systems planning, which is what we would want. And I think we've made reference to a number of areas of work where we have shared priorities and shared work, notwithstanding the work of the Community Addictions team and the Commission services of Change, Grow, Live. As a result of the review, we are establishing 4 groups which are focused on very specific areas of work, and we've broadened out the partnership to include our colleagues from a number of third sector and community organisations, including the Salvation Army, as well as working with the university harm reduction services within there. You'll be aware that we have the recovery support working with homeless services, not just in Stirling, but within Clackmannanshire, to support those within homeless accommodation and those who are sofa surfing, because as colleagues will be aware around this table, we have obviously issues where we have addictions, mental health, and often homelessness for those affected by those issues of addiction. It's not generally just one issue for people, as Councillor McPherson has referenced a number of times, and that leads us into substance use and justice and working in partnership with our 2 community justice partnerships across Clackmannanshire and Stirling. I'm more than happy to take questions, but that's just a brief run through where we're at and ensuring that we're including those with lived experience as part of our response as an ADP. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Councillor McPherson, I know you have you've got multiple questions for this, so the floor is yours for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Wendy, I think that this whole family framework here, is this going to be quite clearly existing strategies having to work quite bluntly? You know, and this is all based on numbers of 31 deaths in 2020, it was 19 in 2019, so quite clearly existing strategies have not worked. So I do welcome this new framework. I think the new minister, without getting political here, I think she's shown courage and new leadership and fresh leadership, and I just hope that she doesn't make the mistakes her predecessor and rely too much on civil servants to kind of lead the agenda, because that's what happened to Joe Fitzpatrick here. I think that a couple of questions I've got here, Wendy, page 169, at 2.31, and again, I've kind of driven this forward with Stephen Clark and Isabel McKnight. I really do welcome it. This is a big step forward here about getting somebody down there, a recovery worker down there. That's massive. And I understood that person was already in position here. So where are we with regard to that appointment?
So my understanding is that we have one CPN, so there's a community psychiatric nurse who comes in for half a day every fortnight. What we're looking to do is build the capacity. So yes, there is existing capacity within that, and I think Isabel and I are committed to ensuring that we continue to provide care and support focused around well-being, around mental health, around stress and distress, all of those which would come under the mental health banner.
That's great, and I know I've challenged Isabel and Stephen Clark, and they've reacted absolutely brilliant, and great credit to Isabel for doing that. I think the next question would be at 2.32 about discussion of being suggested for avenues of collaboration that can be explored in the coming months. Don't give me a wee bit more information on that statement, 2.32, please, Wendy.
That's work that's underway with our ADP lead and with Stephen Clark as our head of housing, and that work is just as I describe. It's about building that primary care, that mental health, well-being capacity within homelessness services. So what they're doing is they are looking at what is the need, because I think we would all argue that half a day a fortnight isn't enough in terms of that mental health and well-being support. So what we're looking to have is a range of multidisciplinary health-focused staff to support our housing colleagues, but also to look at having dedicated social work support into that service too. So it's about it's about having a range of professionals to support our homelessness colleagues to deal with some of what I was describing as the core issues of addictions, mental health, homelessness, and some of the challenges for individuals around that. And I think we would also be looking at debt advice. We would be looking at welfare rights, which are already part of that housing programme of work.
No, Chair, I wouldn't labour the point. When you mentioned the Salvation Army, I go down there once a week because I find the place really quite inspirational down there. And the work that's going on down the Salvation Army is brilliant. And I sat last Thursday with Rachel Dockery, who's the drug worker down there. They do all stuff around income maximisation and debt advice and such like. So I'm pleased to hear you're working closely with the Salvation Army. It's a fantastic organisation. So give me a bit more information on the work you're doing with the Salvation Army.
Before you do that, please, Wendy, Isabel, did you want to come in on an earlier point?
Yeah, I think it would be useful for maybe officers to provide the committee with a briefing note around some of what we're trying to do, because the landscape can be quite complicated. But if I can phrase it in a way, what we're trying to do is take the outreach to those that are most vulnerable in terms of our homeless and our homeless community. So I think it's about taking that support to them, and it's almost a bit of outreach across their need and demand. And the other thing that we need to work on is using the data and the information that we have to determine what those needs might be, and that's across the piece. So I think from Wendy and myself, please have assurance that we will no longer be working in silos. This will be about making sure that people have access to the right support at the right time and in the right place. So that's the kind of focus. But I think maybe what would support this is maybe a briefing note in terms of what our intentions are. In the great scheme of things, it's less complicated for officers, but it's quite difficult to understand given the complexity of some of our communities. But I think we'll give a commitment to do that. That might help. Thank you.
That's really reassuring, and I think I was the most passionate about this as well. She's done some fantastic work on our Challenger, and we had some great work going on there. But Wendy, could you let me know a wee bit more about the Salvation Army link up you've got? Because without praising them too much, the stuff they've been doing and they've continued to do during the pandemic, during difficult times, and putting their own volunteers and staff at risk, they've continued the face-to-face because. And I'll say what Rachel told me down there last week, there's no substitute for it. You can't have a virtual meeting with somebody who's got an addiction. It doesn't work. Wendy, could you give a bit more info, please?
Yep. Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Yeah, absolutely. As always, I think you and I are on the same page in how we want to work in our communities. And I think the work that we're doing with Salvation Army, Simon has been down and like yourself has spent time down there, has linked in with the people using the services as well as the workers who are there. And so the new framework, we will have our colleagues within the Salvation Army front and centre. And as part of our financial modelling going forward, I think we would be keen to be supporting through the Alcohol and Drug Partnership the work of the Salvation Army locally, because up until this point we haven't been, and I think we would want to do some joint project work with them as well as bringing them closer into the work of the Alcohol and Drug Partnership, which up until this point probably hasn't been as close as we would have wanted it to be.
Sure, last thing I'll say, I really welcome that. That's brilliant news, and I know they'll welcome it down there. But I'm not saying they feel undervalued. That financially, they've got their own autonomy because the Salvation Army throughout the UK is a big organisation, and they are kind of centrally funded. So they don't ever come to the council looking for money. I know we've got the furniture project and we get stuff like that with them, but they really do fantastic work. But they do have capacity down there to do more, especially the drugs worker. So please try and use them. And anybody that wants to feel inspired, honestly, I walk through that door, see the people down there, and see the people they're supporting them. They're feeding 25 to 30 people every day. It's phenomenal what they do down there. Honestly, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just
Sorry,
come
Wendy?
back in, convener? No. I absolutely agree, Councillor McPherson. And when Simon, our lead for alcohol and drugs, went down, he came back, like yourself, suitably inspired, motivated, and is really keen to work continuously and more closely with the Salvation Army, because he also understands and values the work of a very committed group of people. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the reports? We're happy to note it. Okay, well, listen, just before we finish up, just you know, this is the final committee of this administration, so I just wanted to take a minute to reflect on a couple of things. So I hope you'll bear with me. You know, what we've done over the last 5 years is in some ways remarkable, in some ways there's still a massive amount of work still to do. The culture plan that we've done, you know, we've got Stirling to the point where it's put in a bid to become the City of Culture in 2025. That's remarkable. Libraries, we've still got 15 of them open. We've got 2 new mobile libraries. We're opening a library in the Cornton. We've refurbished Bannockburn and Cowie. We've embarked on a new partnership with Strathblane. That's the first in the country. You know, when we see an awful lot about libraries in the news here in Stirling, we have doubled down on our commitment to libraries in this administration, and I'm delighted at what we've managed to get with libraries. Sport, you know, we know it's had a bit of an issue with the pandemic, but the fact that Active Stirling are still here, given some of the crisis in that industry is remarkable, and the fact that we have started to refocus on getting people fit, you know, the strategy is great. The food framework, you know, just looking at the report today, that the amount of groups that we've helped and the number of groups working there, again, another fantastic piece of work. What we've done to highlight 16 days of action, the Gypsy Travellers work today, we've done an awful lot of good in this committee. There is still much to do. You know, there's a cost of living crisis that's coming very much now. Food poverty is still a huge issue. Energy poverty is going to be horrendous. So we are doing good work, but this is the committee where we can never take our eye off the ball or foot off the gas because our citizens require that endeavour. But I'd just like to say thank you very much to everyone who's worked really hard. Thanks to all officers. Thanks to Isabel, to Leslie, to Crawford, to Stuart, to Wendy. You know, everyone else that's done remarkably well. Don't feel slighted if I missed you out there. There will be some, and certainly to Sheila and Louise for helping in the background with democratic support. And to elected members, thanks for your endeavours over the last 5 years. And at the risk of the orchestra now playing me off, I will say thank you for attendance and see you all soon. That's the end of community planning and regeneration for this committee. Thank you.
And thank you, Chair, for the way that you've dealt with this committee over the last 5 years. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.